So this is where the magic happens. It's another day of Not Safe for Wonks. Brandon Buchanan here. Usually, like, we have a panel. Usually we have a team. Usually things are very big and very expansive. But in the great tradition of Black media, we have to do a Black media favorite, which is what happened was, and so in the spirit of that proud tradition, what had happened was we were planning to do this episode with the Socialist Rifle Association in the wake of the NRA just kind of getting body blowed. We were going to talk a little bit about what does responsible community self-defense look like, and what does it look like when it's like from the actual community as opposed to, you know, $1 billion conglomeration of arms dealers whose entire modus operandi is to make billions off of white paranoia and weirdness of that kind of variety. So we were all hyped up. Our SRA rep, however, had a family emergency, and they'll be back. Like, we know them. It's not a big deal. They'll probably talk to them on maybe Monday. So given that we aren't discussing community self-defense and this very important topic that's going to affect all of our lives, let's just talk about the clout game for a little bit, because why not? Drop your whatever. This is going to be, we're going to talk a little bit about networking and what's a good way to network, and what's a fair way to network, and what are there counter-revolutionary ways of networking. That seems weird as hell, but it's kind of where we're at. We are going to have the panel incoming. Leia Rose will be in the building in a few minutes. Lao Tong will be in the building. Our super producer who makes so many of the memes and images that you love and depend on. Charlie Madison Winters will be able to provide that blue check perspective. Which is rad. You know, she ran for Congress and they gave a blue check to literally everybody that ran. But anyway, so let's talk about the no comrades under 1K kind of deal, which has been like trending for like the last couple of nights. And what had happened was Kennedy, I really gotta edit this so that we're really riding the clout wave. I'll do that later. But anyway, our host Kennedy Cooper got big followbacks and engagement from people who hadn't always known that he was posting as a solo artist. You know all of his work from the podcast, because if you follow, the show at NSF Wonks on Twitter, a lot of those tweets are from Kennedy. But had great results. And I think one of the things that helped him go from 300 followers to now he's over like $2,000 in a couple of days. And in fact, I'll probably make that one of our banners, from like 300 follows to 2,000 in 48 hours. Sure.
And what's poppin', y'all?
The building. What's up?
What's up? How's it going?
It's going well. We were going to have the Socialist Rifle Association on to talk about community self-defense, but now we have to talk about real things that are of real importance to the community, and that's clout. So, so I thought it would be cool to just, because we all have clout escapades. To just talk a little bit about social media. Leia's incoming. Charlie Madison Winters is incoming. So as things proceed, I'm sure that they will pop in and give their uniquely great perspectives. But have you been participating in this whole hashtag follow back, all that nonsense, or nah?
I tried like one tweet, which is like, not enough. I'm pretty bad at like grifting myself and getting clout, because I kind of hang around like the particular like philosophy Twitter niche.
Ah, yes.
And
And they may look upon such tediousness in an unfavorable light.
actually, they're pretty simpy and stuff, and they mostly do. It's like half of like philosophy Twitter are like real professors and stuff, and they'll like drop like philosophical knowledge and whatever, and then the other half is just plain
people who are
Twitter
broken.
shenanigans.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah, they'll just like post hentai or something and just be like, "What the heck? I thought you were just gonna post stuff about like Socrates and stuff."
Socrates
And then,
and hentai order. That sounds great.
Yeah. But yeah, this whole comrades under 1K thing has been pretty poppin'.
It's been very popular. I feel like, well, so here's the thing. If you follow a bunch of like random leftists, you're asking for fucking trouble in your inbox. Like you're asking for like just the most bizarre takes. I often say, Twitch has got to get it together, and they're just completely broken. All of our weirdest, most unconstructive people are from the Twitch feed. But
yeah,
despite that, the Twitch is filled with weird, unproductive people, just following a grip of left wingers is also gonna cause weird, because you don't know whether, like, the left is a broad category. You don't know if you're gonna like buy McDonald's one day and then they're gonna hop in your mentions like, actually, meat is murder, or actually McDonald's is a corporation and they are destroying the corp. Like, you don't know, like, you literally don't know how much. And also, on the other hand, you may have some people that are fucking resistance libs, and they're like, yeah, I'm a comrade of Hillary, like, whatever the fuck.
Yeah, I think that kind of just speaks to like the diversity of like quote unquote left Twitter,
right?
Because you never know what you're gonna get, and
not at all a monolith.
Yeah,
and people aren't exactly giving like even a full sentence of like what it's not like it's the tweets are like an ad for their content, because, and we'll come back to this too, because you are content maestro, you understand the content creation and all that other stuff. But like, all of these tweets are just like, I live in Indiana and I am left wing, follow. And so you don't know anything about their aesthetic or politics or anything like that. Like,
right.
I saw a couple of leftists of color hashtags, and like, that's cool because we're very underrepresented on like left Twitter. But also, you can have leftists of color that are fucking weirdos. Like, you can definitely have a leftist of color that's a fucking wrecker and needs to be catered to at all times, and is screenshot in the group DM and is messy. Like, you just, like, any kind of community is just going to have that. And this just being, I exist and I'm on Twitter, is especially like susceptible to that. You know what I mean?
Especially, yeah.
But go ahead.
Let's see if I need. I mean, like, and it's also the internet too. So, just by that mere fact, you never know what you're gonna get, and you probably shouldn't even have any expectations.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if people are familiar, but there's a thing going on 4chan about like trying to get into this no comrades under 1K thing, and just quote unquote infiltrating the left.
Well, first of all, 4chan will
I guess the goal is to like troll them and stuff.
I suppose, like, 4chan, here's the deal. The weakness of 4chan is they don't really like understand the thing that they are hating enough to do a good duplication of it. So like, I'm sure that there will be like some cartoon stereotypes of SJWs that joined in like June 2020 and are just like dedicated to harassing white people, and will just be like, you're white, and will just make shaking triggered emote, that kind of shit. But like, I think those people will get bored really quickly because like first of all, you're brainwashing yourself low key if you are
Right.
making your Twitter feed just leftists that you are following to infiltrate. You literally are brainwashing yourself with left-wing fucking views. That's number one. Number two, are they going to do a good job? Maybe not.
I don't find the effort all that convincing because there's, even if you consider like, well, how many of our comrades have like gone on follows and stuff versus how many people on 4chan are, trying to infiltrate. And I think the ratio of that is just so one-sided that it's like there's actually a thing about like pissing in an ocean of piss that actually comes from 4chan. I feel like that's really applicable in this case because there's just way too many Twitter leftists to make like an actual impact. And if you're gonna do something dumb like post like 4chan-y, I don't know, QAnon stuff, then they're just gonna block you. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I also think they're not gonna know how to hold on to it long enough to be a fucking quality fucking hit. Like they're not gonna really infiltrate in the way that they want to. And also like there's not, like I said, there's not a lot of fun to get out of it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is like how many of these posters that are on the No Comrades Under 1K are going to be good posters? Because I think you're going to have just a lot of white noise posters. And I would say 90% just of, not like because of the hashtag, but just human beings in general. Like 90% of them are going to be like white noise posters and they're not going to blow up. And like, it's good that you're over 1K because that means somebody will hear you as you are yelling about capitalism, and that's rad.
Yeah.
But also, like, what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to talk about? How are you going to use your micro platform? Do you ever struggle with that? Like, what am I posting on a day-to-day basis? And is it interesting?
I kind of don't care, which is probably why I'm doing so bad at like getting follows and stuff.
Well, you're not doing well on the follows, but you are like a premier content maker.
Yeah, like I definitely have like a couple of fans who, are interested in my tweets and stuff.
You make OC. It's very rare. So,
Yeah, and I don't know like if my path to like grifting and clout success is just going to be like a reply guide to all of these philosophy posts and stuff, but I don't know. I think I just need some more time and just kind of keep doing what I'm doing. Like for instance, I don't know if I could pull this up. I made this meme.
While you pull up your meme, I will pull up Kennedy's meme, which is what happened starring Vermin Supreme. We're gonna tweet this after the show. This is world premiere shit, by the way. We're gonna tweet this at Vermin and see if Vermin will like come on the show and talk about the Libertarian Convention. I know that's kind of old and shit, but like I'm still fucking interested, That's great. That's fucking quality. That's the kind of content that you're getting here.
Yeah. Low-key, I think these memes are doing us a real service.
Oh yeah.
Platform. Memes are the dreams. Here, let me pull up my abomination right here.
Let's just put some Drunk Garfield on here. Everybody loves Drunk Garfield. What the hell?
So this is Hegel with the Giga Chad chin. And I've just been for a little bit of philosophy background, Hegel is a critic of Kant, who is another philosopher. And there happens to be a lot of people who like Kant. And so I'll just reply with this with this photo, and it's just so ridiculous that people love it and they'll like it and retweet it. So
wait, Lau, move your head a little bit so that we're the other way, other direction.
There you go.
Now it's like we're here and we're talking, and Hegel is here with us, and that's rad. Actually, hey, I actually do think that there's some actual. Well, I'll ask you first. Is there a philosophical fucking takeaway from clout centralization? And is there anxiety that comes with being under 1K? Does social media feel like we need to have an audience more than we actually need one? Like, this is a weird
Yeah.
kind of thing, but like, what's the psychological yearning that goes behind a hashtag like this?
I think one part of it is definitely about like community building. Um, there's just dynamic between like, people who somehow lean towards like leftist politics, and for one reason or another, they're not really connected in on this platform, right? Um, so another component about this is like we're living in a very particular age where most of our social communication and social relations take place on the internet. So I think those are two things that are important. But it's also like following people and like liking things and retweeting and sharing.
Alyssa, you can come on if you feel like it. Just like DM me, we'll just pull you up. But yeah, what's up, Alyssa? Actually, no, Alyssa, you're an admin. You can literally just come in the room whenever you want. Never mind. I'm sitting up here like, can we send her an invite? Yeah.
Speaking of clout, Alyssa. But yeah, I mean, I got to think about this.
Well, I mean, we all want community, obviously, and we're all like dealing with a time of extreme isolation just because there's a killer virus, and it's fucking on the march, and we've all got to stay inside and shit. So we're feeling that, and I also think like people feel a little like helpless because history is kind of happening around us right now. If you're on the left,
oh, definitely.
Yeah, the Democratic Party has. I know that there are. Like literally somebody in my DSA was like sign this petition about supporting Biden. And I'm like, yeah, no. The Biden administration is kind of intentionally put the left out of the process. I think that's fucking nice. I feel like that's fucking just honest. So you don't really have a stake in, the election unless you are like, gotta be Trump bad.
Yeah.
So what are we doing? Like, when we talked about, in fact, Lau, we talked a little bit about what happens if our candidates don't win, and what are we going to cover like during this period,
Right.
So we've got to think about movement building in a totally different way, because like all this electoral shit that everybody was hyped up about in January, that's now like fucking over with for good or bad. So, but now like we have the opportunity to be like, for all the people that have been like elections are bullshit and we need to put our energy into things that are more productive. Well, we've had like the last 3 months and we've got like 3 months ahead. So what are we doing? What are the initiatives that we are getting behind? I think like these fucking protests nationwide were like an extreme show of like human anger and shit. We didn't like get any laws passed off the back of it, but like there has been a lot of connection and organizing, and maybe you don't actually see the results of that for like a year. Like people are meeting now that are going to do dope shit like 6 months from now. But like as a DSA co-chair and myself as a DSA chair, like we both know like there's a pipeline between like having the fucking good idea and doing a good action that has like a material benefit for people. Like that organizing process takes time too, especially if you're trying to organize a big group of people.
I will say though that like this whole coming back to the whole like no comrades under 1K thing is like seems like that's a pretty spontaneous way of like trying to organize people. Like it kind of just happened, and I'm wondering if that's what future types of like community coalescing is going to look like, right? Because I think I really do think there's a lot of room for like these spontaneous organic things to happen, and I'm wondering if that is sort of the way to kind of to get ourselves in a better position of power, right? And maybe the point isn't really to try to do things or try to organize in a more traditional way, even though that's really valuable. I think that maybe, you know, it wouldn't be such a bad idea to like cultivate these kinds of spontaneous moments, you know.
Peachy Keen, tell us about yourself in like 140 characters and what's your deal. And Jinx, yeah, thank you for the retweet, kind of getting us in front of some beautiful fresh eyeballs, which we always love. And hopefully people will like, we sit up here and we give usually really good knowledge and information from a day-to-day basis. Right now we're just chilling it, but yeah, yesterday we talked about the fucking NRA. A couple days ago, we talked to Adriel Hampton about party organizing. And yo, what's up? And yeah, we just got off a season break, so we're fucking brainstorming new shit, and we're also talking to a bunch of writers and shit that have written really good articles that haven't really hit the mainstream yet. So we're very excited about what's coming up. Peachy King, disabled moms, 2 kids, sick of this electoral bullshit. I feel you. Do you feel like we're better off now as a movement from not having been involved in the election, or is this like a good alternative? Actually, well, Alyssa Vera is here. So Lau, Alyssa, and me, this is like a great crossover event. What's up, Alyssa? How are you doing today? This like morning, rolling out of bed right now. You're in prime time for us.
It's actually 1:30 where I'm at, if I'm being real. I just fucking suck. And so anyways, I threw on lipstick and called it good.
Hell yeah.
But hey. So yeah, but I do think it's funny anytime we get on a stream together now, we're like, hey, check out this crossover event. And now I'm kind of like, shit, we're kind of just morphing into each other.
Still got novelty. It's like when fucking Marvel people started fucking banging heads for the first time. And if you're listening to this and posting, you are like part of the crossover too, which is very rad. So anyway, Alyssa, like we were right before you logged in, we were talking about like we are not really doing the election, really. Like we're not really participating in it. And we're doing other shit instead. So how valuable has this other shit been? Just in terms of like movement building and coalition building and networking and mutual aid. Is that the Kropotkin or is that something else? All right. So how
just
positive
a large print edition because I can't read.
For people who are like, hey, the elections are bullshit, how positive do you feel like things have been on the left, good, bad, neutral? Just doing activism versus doing the whole fundraising, elections, phone banking, texting rigmarole.
Okay, so on one hand, I got some really awesome news today that I will go public with, but we're not allowed to like talk about it right now. So I'm a little bit more like jazzed up right now. So just pull this. But I think it's just, I'm not going to lie to anybody. It's really fucking hard to have any faith in the electoral system. I think a lot of us have seen firsthand just how fucked over we can get on it. So I do come back to, first and foremost, I'm not ever going to vote shame anybody. I will engage with people. I really try and do those things. But at the end of the day, I really think our best bet, especially, I mean, given this pandemic and what it's shown us, is that like our communities are super important. So I want to encourage everybody that's watching us, if you have not like, this crazy hair keeps cracking me up, sorry. You have not found found your community or you need help like identifying where that is or how that can be, like you really should, because I think at the end of the day, we're in a general trajectory to where there's just too many people that don't believe in this voting system that we have right now. And I think that sense is only growing larger. And so I think we do need to be preparing ourselves, building our communities, networking, and that's kind of why I've been really so excited about this No Comrades Under 1K, because I think it's a good like test run on how to be a good community member online. Like you say something stupid and people are like, hey, that's stupid. And you're like, oh shit, teach me how to be better. It really helps and goes a long way. So I think there's a lot of change going on right now, and I think that there's kind of a large capacity for that change, and people are really feeling it right now. So I'm always one that's like, let's run all of these. Like let's try it all. But I've tried voting a lot and it didn't work. So I try everything once.
Jinx, what the fuck did your direct action group do in terms of like promotion? Did just 700 people just show up and was like, what are we doing? And what direct actions are you taking? Are you just doing like street actions, or are you doing social distancing type shit and you're like texting and calling and shit like that? Like, let us know how you're organizing.
And
is that a cutter play by? All right, that's fine. Gabros XO asking for a follow. I don't know your yeah, we'll pull up your feed. Like we have a relatively small, not really small. We have enough that we can like literally put up someone's Twitter feed and just show it. _Gabros XO is not what's happening here.
They're on Periscope, so maybe that's what they're saying.
Periscope. Okay. Well,
so
Gabros,
yeah.
I don't know. Periscope link.
Yeah. I wouldn't be able to share my feed because for some reason I got a couple of comrades posting hentai on my feed. So
no good. We keep leading street actions mostly and just telling people where to find us. Are you printing paper? Or are you just literally telling people like word of mouth? We can't control the hentai when people post them. Well, Peachy, I don't know whether you're knocking off hentai or class reductionism, or I'm not exactly sure what you're. But yeah, tell us how you're promoting your fucking local group. You're just telling people word of mouth that you exist. How does somebody, when you're talking to people via word of mouth, what are you telling them to do? Like, what's your do they join a website? Do they just buy a t-shirt? Like, what are we talking about here?
I think that I'm going to jump in on this really quick, but I think what's so important about that is that there's a capacity. Somebody else said it, and I'm not going to be able to remember who it was or give them credit. I'll come back to it. But remembering that there are so many different lanes of activism, there's so much to be done. We have so much work. And so I want to just be abundantly clear that it's always my personal opinion that there's so many different ways to get involved with direct action. And whether, you're immunosuppressed and you need to be at home and you're doing online stuff, you're writing things, if you're crying helplessly into your pillow, I mean,
love to do that.
But so I think one thing I like to reiterate is that sometimes I find that I can do like these certain types of direct action activities and just always, and other times like I can't engage with all those things. So just for all of the fellow activists out there who beat the living shit out of themselves for feeling like they're not doing enough, remember that there's so many capacities and yada yada.
And I think like that's related to this point about like what's happening with this comrades under 1K thing and the kind of like diversity that you find in like quote unquote left Twitters. Like we can talk about, community and the left in really abstract terms, and we kind of don't really have concrete ways of seeing that. And I think like, things like mutual aid and stuff is a really concrete way to see what a community can be like, or what the possibilities of community
And I
organizing looks like.
I want to come back and talk a little bit about like what kind of communities are we building, and is Twitter a good place for the kind of communication that we want? Let's make that something that we come back to. I want to quickly hit Damn No Bueno's post. Culture war is bullshit. Focus on uncompromising fiscal policy reforms. No Bueno, what do you feel are the fiscal policy reforms? Generally, like when we think of fiscal policy reforms, I think of like, get out of here, Alyssa. Yeah, I think of like, we're on the gold standard now. So what do you feel are culture war issues now, and what are uncompromising fiscal policy reforms? Is that related to the Treasury or something else? And by the way, it's possible that No Bueno like fucking left, and it's like, I've been waiting for 2 minutes to hear my. And well, allow, just give your is culture war bullshit, and what is culture war in your opinion?
I don't think it's entirely bullshit. I mean, like, I definitely do think like fiscal policy is important. Like, why not just like open up a bunch of like federal accounts to people and just inject money and give them money straight away, you know? But like, you know, like, I think that for the most part, like the alt-right and conservative outlets have pretty much won like the culture war. And I think like in this particular time and place, like, you know, the quote unquote left as an abstract is still trying to like understand themselves in a cultural way, I guess. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like,
Yes,
we're definitely not on the map, you know. I think like our biggest like tools are like theory. I'm not sure. But I do think it's still important.
Currently, everybody, Periscope is acting very weird. We're not exactly sure. It's not our fault. It looks like it is an issue on Periscope's end. So the easiest way to watch us is probably, and I hate to say this, you must be truly desperate to come to me for help. You probably should like go on fucking twitch.tv/notsafemedia or YouTube. We're also on YouTube. Just YouTube, Not Safe for Wonks, and we will pull up if you're having problems seeing this on Periscope.
I'm pretty pissed about this right now. Like,
I know.
Like,
the Periscope is where the clout comes. I know.
Periscope, my bread and butter, baby.
No.
See, as soon as we start talking about like culture war stuff, they shut down our shit.
Yeah, we're talking about our Periscope is working, and Alyssa's is probably being repaired. So anyway, yeah, we got a comment saying the culture war is bullshit, and we've had like the biggest uprisings in American history over the culture war. So I don't know what we consider like real shit. Yeah, one of our comrades who may be under 1K is like, I'm on YouTube. It's all good. Oh, this is Jinx. I got
that's so true. Hi.
Rachel is here. Wow, suddenly the Friday stream is like a big stream. It started out as me just yelling into the void, but now we've got
cool.
No Bueno, we're just talking about, we're going to come back and talk about community, but we're going to briefly just talk about what are culture war issues? And No Bueno, if you've got particular things that count to you as culture war, feel free to bring them up. But he's just saying, like, can we abandon the culture war issues and talk about housing? And yes, and like,
and the cultural, there's just, I feel like, this is one of my favorite books, but the cultural nature of human development. So I guess I want to be really transparent and say that I always get a little lost in the abstractness of what people mean when they say the culture war.
When people say culture,
like,
okay,
studied a lot of culture like that.
No Bueno is like, culture war is shit that doesn't affect me.
Oh,
Like the culture war is like, are women in Marvel movies? What are the material problems? Do like most people experience their material problems through culture, and like you can recruit somebody to talk about these issues through their culture because that is like where they feel the pain most. Yeah, we know, but listen, like we didn't have, and so like you've gotta be scientific. Why did we have like the largest like fucking mass demonstrations in American history this summer over issues that you probably would dismiss as culture war issues? And what is the psychological reason that so many people were mobilized behind that? And there hasn't been like a much larger march for food insecurity, which we know that millions of people feed. Or why hasn't there been that kind of uprising for Fight for 15 that we know many people feel like are affected by? We have a huge country that's filled with people who work in retail. So we've got to like anybody who like can think of this shit scientifically should be able to think, well, this is getting a certain amount of traction that my issue is not. Why?
Well, I think there's a certain dialogue between actual culture and culture that gets represented in media, right? And generally speaking, I think we can say that media is both reinforcing to and reflective of culture, and it serves both of these purposes, right? So we can't really say like, is this real? Is this made up? Because the answer is both. Right? It exists in the state of dialectic. And each of these sort of respective influences are working on us as individuals, but there are so many other things that can also work on us as individuals, right? So I don't know. I think it's such a complex issue.
Right.
Try and like sum it up really quickly. It's like, yes, this is, or no, this is not. I feel like there's no way to really do that in a way that honestly like captures what's happening. And like if you like theory, this is something big with Noam Chomsky, right? This idea of manufactured consent. And if you read like semiotics, right, sort of Baudrillard talked about the simulacrum, and it's all the sort of same system being described from different angles, where we are constantly changing and reciprocally influencing each other.
Yeah. I always say whenever like someone starts on the track, and I've heard all of these discussions, like, why are we supporting Black Lives Matter? The media supports it, and therefore it's like not legitimate because the MSM is behind it. It's a meme, and the only thing that truly will make change is labor issues. What I would say to that is like, what specifically, and it's very hard to get people to say this, and you're just here on Periscope, so maybe you'll say it. What specifically are the issues that you feel are identity issues? And when someone is at your labor rally, can you tell them to not talk about that issue because they are distracting from like what you have ordained as the movement and as the pure thing? Because generally, when you talk about like that vulnerability, that is the kind of vulnerability that people are feeling the most. And it's something that they have the least amount of support for. So like obviously like fucking the casting at Disney movies fucking doesn't fucking matter. And we can like discuss how that doesn't matter. But generally when we talk about like this is an IDPOL issue and why do we need this, like gay marriage IDPOL issue, like police brutality IDPOL issue, transgender stuff IDPOL issue, ICE IDPOL issue. Like we can just like break down all of these things as IDPOL issue.
Yeah.
And then suddenly,
when
when you look at the people who you're trying to turn out to vote, right, it's mostly like women, black people, Latino people, like that group of people who are not affected by an IDPOL issue are actually like a minority of the people who you want to vote. And that's and maybe you're thinking like, I'll do like a Chuck Schumer and I'll build a new coalition. And Biden is actually trying very hard to do that.
Biden's trying hard to do a lot of shit, but
I think you were talking about two things there, Brandon. One of them is the extent to which, like, identity politics in media is about humanizing people, right? Because representation is humanization, is the opposite of othering, right? And when you have absolutely no media about these other cultures that you live with, then these other cultures feel somehow alien even within their own space. And that's the one side of it. The other side of it, I think, is you were talking about like reaching out to progressively smaller groups and becoming sort of more granular with who you're trying to, with who you're trying to recruit. And I mean, I think that there's something to be said for that, but I think that really the best strategy is just like large scale, easy to communicate, grand ideas that you can all unite behind. And then Alyssa, you were very trying to say something.
If I could remember it, we'll see. But well, so I wanted to comment on MSM as corporatized. Like, yes, true, so real. That is a very real thing. But that's also why, like, the four of us and so many others that are working like in this collaborative space are doing essentially guerrilla radio and alternative forms of broadcasting and kind of trying to circumvent these things. So, yes. The mainstream media is absolutely part of a manufacturing of consent, and they're all owned by the same 6 fucking corporations. But okay, so there's that. And then, but I wanted to kind of touch on the culture. I'm not gonna be able to remember this. I'm gonna chop it, but I think it's really imperative that we recognize that like there's a distinction between assimilation and integration, right? And so when we talk about identifying different cultures or having diversity within the left, I mean, that's kind of something Brandon and I have talked about this before, where it's like we as the left recognize that it's not like an amalgamous group of like people. And I think the people that are really true are like trying to my child.
All right, let's move on for a quick second.
That's a mood, though. I've been doing like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off full-time parenting, and it is a lot. There is so much childcare. I have been so dramatically reduced in my capacity to do anything else.
I just went into my bedroom and my daughter was starfished underneath my bed trying to hide farther. Like she thought I wasn't going to see her 2 tiny ass little legs sticking out from underneath my bed. Anyways.
Kids are great.
Yeah.
It's been a fun 6 months, everybody.
I think that when you have groups of people that are the base, the people that you're trying to activate, people that are not super into the process, you do need to, because there's a lot of skepticism, you need to show that you care about the issues that they specifically care about. You can't always be like, oh, we can't talk about your issue X because it's a distraction. You kind of have to take all the baggage with you. And look, that doesn't necessarily mean, I mean, when you have people who ignore class issues because they're college adjunct professors and their number one issue is them individually getting a promotion. We know that whole group of Twitter and that whole group of
grifters.
That whole group of people. But what we're just saying is it's very not helpful to ignore identity issues. And you can tell this because groups that ignore solely on identity issues, solely, excluding identity issues, are roundly unpopular on the left and nobody likes them. And like you would think that they would say, well, we all have all these things in common. We will build a big superior coalition. And it generally involves like you trying to understand the psychology of the people that you're trying to get to shut up, like politically speaking, like for street leaders, and you kind of don't.
Yeah, I think that that's kind of what one of the things too is like, there's this like flip to recognizing and to, where it's like, I think people, when they haven't spent a lot of time understanding, like, I guess human psychology, which sounds so pretentious to say, but bear with me, and or aren't like really aware of how individualistic our society is, or how how we do have a not dominant group, like our non-dominant cultures. There's a bunch of them, cultures everywhere. But where, there is collectivism. And so like, even there's just, I feel like there's so much more nuance to these situations. And I feel like kind of like what Rachel was saying, where we need, first we make these things really big and palatable so people can understand and we can kind of hoard and collect ourselves. And then we have to go to this point where we recognize that the left, by its own, I think, parameters, if you will, is ultimately somewhere that is going to have to learn how to have different people in our groups, because we're not trying to be fucking all like the alt-right fucking white people box of community, and so that's where
you brought up having like an understanding of like decision making and cognition and sort of psychology generally speaking, and I'm expanding on it because I'm a fucking nerd. And you said it was pretentious. And I don't think that's necessarily true, right? Because so much of the research is counterintuitive. So much of what we believe about ourselves is actually kind of a lie. We're just telling ourselves because it's convenient and lets us think more quickly and make decisions more quickly. And that's not what you might expect. You might think of us as rational creatures, and we're not.
No, like seriously, go look up the availability heuristic, or just like type in heuristics into Google.
Heuristics are a fucking mess. So like for people who sort of generally don't know what a heuristic is, what our brain does all of the time is just process like a bazillion amounts of like, or a bazillion different points of sensory information and then filter most of it out. And so part of that process is your brain just sort of decides not to look at things at all and just imagines what should be there without you directly looking at it. Yeah, I know. And so like our body and our brain do a lot of shortcut things like that because the brain is an extremely expensive organ. It takes so much energy to run a brain. And so if we don't do these sort of shortcuts, we would like melt and our brains would come out of our ears. So,
and then I'm going to build up the brain and look like he's dying.
Yeah, and it's important to understand that because it directly explains why people do things like vote against their interests.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to hijack the entire show, with like class reductionism versus race reductionism versus make any underprivileged person pick anti-discrimination law versus econ relief. But who's offering econ relief?
Why?
Yeah, sorry. Like who's offering econ relief? Who's delivered econ relief in the last like 100 years?
I grew up in a fucking tent, and I've never had to decide between if I'm not saying I'm underprivileged. I'm at a university, but I have.
If you really want to like spend an hour talking about strategy versus all that other stuff, like DM us, we'll schedule a different time because we want to talk about community building. But this is the people show, and you are a person, so you have time in the spotlight.
I had one more point I was hoping to make, and it's a really good one to bring us back on track right now. So I brought up heuristics to talk about all of these shortcuts and things that influence people's behavior. Incidentally, one of the things that is most effective for conquering racial bias or any other kind of like bigotry or prejudice is working together on a project. Building something together is the best way, bar none, to create a community. And this is not just, like some like, crystal hippie crunchy bullshit. Like this is actual scientific knowledge. So what should we be doing to build communities? I mean, go out, start a community garden, go out, start a tenants union, build something, build a gazebo in your apartment complex or something. Like literally you can do anything so long as you are doing it as a group with the people in your immediate community, you will develop a stronger community for it. And it's worth the time and it's worth the effort.
Yes.
Very well said.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do want to bring up one point just to kind of, I guess, like talk about like identity and representation and recognition a little bit more, because it is, I think this is like one of the main topics is like, we can, I think for the most part, like we take identities, to be just static things. We take it for granted. But the thing that you have to realize is like recognition is a process, right? And recognition takes time and like work and labor to actually do. I think the point about like doing projects together and trying to achieve something in common is that within the community is, you know, within communities, you kind of have like this sense of like built-in recognition. Because if you're doing labor together, that means that you're recognizing the kind of work and the kinds of identities that are needed in order to like that are attached to the kinds of work that you do, right? So for example, we have numerous, almost like innumerable, like different kinds of things that people do in order to like produce commodities, right? You got like factory line workers, you got fishermen, you got XYZ ad infinitum. And you know, I think that's one important part about identity and recognition, is that it's procedural. It's a process, and it's not exactly as static or as fixed as people might think, right? And it's not like that. It's not like you're this identity all the time, like 100%. Like, for example, I know that outwardly speaking, like I probably look Asian, right? But when I go play Halo 3 or when I read a book, I don't think in the back of my mind I'm doing this as like a quote unquote Asian.
Maybe
person,
you
right?
should.
Like,
Maybe that would
maybe I should.
clear, right?
Well, but internalized racial bias is also a thing. That's called identity. Oh gosh,
My girl.
there's a term for it that I am forgetting. But
psychology show. Sorry. Nobody
I love
likes
psychology. It was what I got one of my degrees in.
I'm gonna watch a psychology show right now.
Identity threat, by the way, is what it's called. I had to think about it for a second, but it's called identity threat, right? So if you give, like, for example, a woman a math test, and right before she takes a math test, you say, hey, did you know that we're studying to see whether women are worse at math? Because, you know, they say women are worse at math. We're trying to, like, look at that. Women will do worse at math. Like, it actually literally makes us do worse. Like, these things are real, you know, and they're not like these sort of non-material things, these narratives that we create about ourselves and about the world around us meaningfully and directly influence our actual lived behavior.
This is a really easy book to read for all of you who are interested in philosophy. Really easy book by Alfred North Whitehead called Process and Reality. You get
cool things. I would also say a really interesting and actually fairly accurate one, Schopenhauer's Will and Representation. Yeah, The World of Will and Representation by Schopenhauer is also very good on this and pretty accurate, actually, to how we sort of interact with our perceptions. But that one's like, I mean,
I'm going to very briefly officially launch our philosophy-centered spinoff in 3, 2, 1.
Punctuate.
I mean, what do you think the Star Trek podcast we're working on is going to be now? Anyway, Brandon, we miss you.
All right, I'm back.
So fun.
Come back.
Now you're a bottom bitch like me.
Yeah, that's true. We're in this together now.
Brandon, you'll be our interlocutor. We're just going to ask you questions until you feel done.
That makes perfect sense. But no, let's talk slightly to build off that idea. What kind of communities? Let's say that you're a comrade. You've got your 1K. Now what? You've got. Do you need a posting strategy?
You're gonna cut out there for a second, Brandon.
Well, did I cut out?
One of us did. I didn't hear what you said.
No, I think it was Alyssa. But anyway, because her volume and I stopped. Anyway, you've now got 1,000 follows or whatever. And so now, what are you posting? What should your strategy be? And what can you do to intentionally community build in, I guess, kind of the way that we're doing now, maybe?
I know one of the things we've been doing around here is, like, we started by trying to identify concrete need within the community. So I live in Gwinnett County, Georgia, which is, I mean, it has a shockingly high problem for homelessness. You know, we have so many homeless people. And so one of the first things I did is start looking at that as like a problem that we as a community could come together and solve. You know, something that we could do something about with each other on the ground with our neighbors, you know, and started talking to people about who might be interested in that. And then it turned out that, you know, one of the big things like also threatening the community was like food. So we looked into like, okay, well, what can we do to produce food within the community for people? How can we like solve this problem immediately? Even just the other day, we had like literally a sidewalk that was overgrown, and somebody was complaining and saying like the county needs to come fix this. And one of our neighbors just chimed in and was like, hey, you know, we could just fix this. We can just clean this up. Like, we don't actually need the county. And so like it's these small moments of like just addressing immediate problems that you see in your community and asking the question, really saying like, hey, I want to do this thing. Does anybody else want to work on this? Go on Nextdoor, go on Facebook, go, you know, flyer if you want to, although I think probably you'll get more information more quickly on the first two. But like, do something. Just start, and other people will join you. I'm serious.
For real though. Honestly, when people see you putting out effort and see how much you care about something, like, you don't have to be a leader to be leading, so to speak. Like, you really, I really just can't emphasize enough how, like, if you're doing this with intention and with purpose and you're working with community. Now, I want to be abundantly clear. We are not saying go to a different country and try and build a mission when you've never been allowed to be a carpenter in the United States. Also, psych students, if you're watching, don't go to other countries to be a psychologist if you couldn't be one in the United States. But like, so recognizing, grounding yourself, like you were saying, in those communities that are around you. You motherfucker. Do not colonize, and we should not be going to Mars, god damn it. Anyways, so.
No, it's a whole new planet we could ruin. It's fine.
I lose my shit on colonization. That's on my notes too. I was like, bring up colonizing, but you know, so something I kind of wanted to point out, even, you know, because I did mention like I love psych and stuff like that, but I love hating on psychology too because of the Western ethnocentrism of that. And so what I'm kind of trying to point to is like, remember not to be the person that's going into a community that you don't have a place in being in and then being like, let's look down on these guys and like write about them and then leave and abandon.
This is about charity.
Exactly. It's not
charity exist because for charity to exist, there has to be a power hierarchy where somebody is losing. Charity shouldn't exist.
Exactly. The nonprofit industrial complex is a bitch. So, damn it, I'm trying not to use that word anymore. Fuck. Okay. So, as I drop the F-bomb, I don't care anymore. Anyways, so so there's, I'm not trying to make people feel scared or anything, but like truly when we say go find your community, we mean like find yours. Find one that you have something in that you can contribute to. So like, you know, not to say you don't help others, but really ground yourself in things that you're good at. So I feel like if you are, you know, a comrade with 1K now, if you need people to amplify you, hit up the people that just did this No Comrades under 1K, you know, so like finding ways to amplify your story. That's one thing you can do online. Always at me. I love amplifying a motherfucker. And then also just, you know, keeping yourself grounded in recognizing your positionality and you know, the things that you are privileged in, the things that you are not, and really trying to find out how you can be somebody that's helpful. You know, so again, it's like Peachy Keen just said, it's condescending as fuck to me when a disabled person when people do that shit. And like I have an invisible disability. I have a couple. Right. So there's a couple. And so it's really a hard thing. So to get involved too, because sometimes people make a power map of Twitter. You're muted. No one can hear you. They just have to listen to me, Brandon.
Oh God. But no, really, like make a list of the people who were big players that made this post, because it means they may do something like that in the future. Also look at like who the most popular follows in some of those threads were. And then start looking for subcategories. If you have like a thing that you're good at, or an identity or a region that you're in, start trying to find people who have that commonality with you. Maybe start your own hashtag if you need to. And just do like physical outreach and networking with people. People will be like, especially if you just got here, people will be like, Are you a cop? But just do it anyway. Like,
well, I don't think you can never go wrong with asking, how can I help? You know? And then believe people when they tell you what you can do to help. Believe them. Believe they know what they need and ask.
Yes.
Yeah, there's this crazy concept called consent. And I'm allowed to say crazy because I am. There's this totally wild concept called consent. And you can use that with real people in your community that live near you. And you can ask and put up flyers and say, like, hey, do you have a problem? Let's see if I can help. And then list some things you know how to do. And you can say, like, for free on the sign and everything. You can just do it. No one's stopping you.
As we talk about consent and I just keep doing this, it's so bad.
Yeah, be a good neighbor.
Yeah.
But really be a good neighbor and don't touch your people's friends' boobs. But what I was going to say is, for those of you who are like a little bit unfamiliar with what power mapping is, I have this fun one that I made when with my Slugs for Bernie students when we were like first starting. And so it's like, you know, a 4-plane graph with an x-axis and y-axis. And then you want to basically just like figure out who got the clout in the things you're trying to get involved in. But you know, that's, again, this is where I go back to, like, no matter what happened with the Bernie campaign, no matter what happened, I learned so much about how to actually utilize the tools that I have at my disposal. And like, I've never been a part of a campaign that has taken so much effort to train me so that I can go and do these things absolutely by myself. And again, so like, that's where I get like super into the what Students for Bernie did. And that's where it's like, remember that a victory isn't always categorized as like what we qualify a win, you know? And so like, fuck me, Bernie dropped out and endorsed Biden. Yuck, yikes. On the other hand, though, I know that I worked with over 12,000 students across the United States, like actively, who are like go fucking getters, who are trained, who are so hard and dedicated, and who I watched like march in like fucking 2-degree weather out to go knock on doors across the country. So, you know, and like meeting like y'all, I can't deal with inverted cameras. But so I think this is where, you know, again, exactly. Flo, know what up. But anyway, I think that's where we get back into, that's how we also combat so many things, is by breaking down these individual ideas of expecting other people to be fending for themselves, the whole myth of meritocracy, and this whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps. If you're going out there, you're asking people, hey, how can I help? How can I get involved? What do you need? You know, and really respecting and listening to them and trying to help amplify them and doing that. And then also, like, white people don't just go take leadership roles. Step back, let someone else lead sometimes, you know, like recognize, read the room, read the community, but also have no fear and engage. Loving people will always get you farther, in my opinion. And rant.
That's always well said and always well put. And
I am pretty confident that we strongly agree for exactly the same scientific reasons. So, you know, this is a logical choice. This is a rational decision. This is an actual scientifically supported answer. It is not easy. It is not simple, but it is what we have to do.
And it's so fun.
The end. And it is fun. Yeah. Like when I started organizing, I met some of the most amazing people that I've ever known. Like,
the only reason I've made it through COVID is because of my activists. Honestly, God.
Yeah.
And you know, like, I'm a widow. Yeah. My husband died of infectious disease in 2018. So like COVID was really terrifying for me. I've spent the last year and a half before COVID being like, oh my God, could you imagine if everybody died like it was 1901? And I'm like, oh, I guess 2020 is the new standard. But so just like also remembering how you know COVID is affecting people, so you can go and affect change right now by just asking people how they're doing and like being a homie, making a couple jokes. Like it doesn't activism doesn't always have to be this like big chunk out of shit, you know, like we're not taking bites out of crime. We're here to do different ways of community building, and sometimes that means just providing mental health for your comrades. And listening.
Literally anything that can happen in your community that will mobilize people to start actively working together. Whatever that looks like, it can be a lot of different things. It can be a lot of different needs. It can be a lot of different resources. You can accomplish something in your community by working together. Something.
Oh,
I promise.
yes. Clout chasers.
So yeah, let's talk about these couple of subjects. Number one, so all this is happening on Twitter, and all of you are veterans of the Twitter, the Twatter, the tweeting. So is Twitter a good space for this kind of organization?
Yeah.
No.
Community building?
No.
It's debate night. Let's do it.
No.
Rachel, with the nose.
Okay, so let me point out a couple of really, really Twitter successful progressive campaigns in the most recent election cycles in the primaries. Like we see these people who have immense amounts of clout at the national level, but who are losing in their communities because they're not engaging with their actual communities. There is no replacement, full stop, for actually just interacting with the people who live near you. I think Nextdoor is a way better opportunity than Twitter's ever going to be for doing this kind of work. And I know that place is a hell pit, but like actually this is where the people who live near you are talking, and you have to go to them. You have to meet people where they are. And most people are not on Twitter. They just aren't. We are, because we have brain rot and we like yelling into the void, and because, we need to do something to make the screaming anxiety stop for even a split second. But like actually,
Don't put that evil on me, Ricky.
Hey,
never.
Lau, before we move on, Lau, you're stepping out. You've been here for an hour. Can you give your own views on, is Twitter a good space for networking, or starting your network or any of this stuff? Are people in the right place?
No.
Thank you
Well,
very much.
Like maybe for like the initial like exposure and awareness, but like I think there definitely needs to be like a different platform beyond that.
Is Mastodon that spot, or have we not developed that spot yet?
No, not Mastodon. Probably Facebook, to be honest.
No.
Now that's
Fuck
a good
you,
take.
sir.
Oh, Lau, you're leaving after the blazing take of everybody hop on Facebook. That's incredible.
I know that Zoomers aren't very fond of Facebook, but like, and I know that like Facebook has a bunch of issues, but I think like some kind of format. Dang it, get on Facebook.
Okay, I'm just going to give you all my take on this.
Yeah.
I think Rachel's muted and she doesn't know it.
I sure was. I think, the platform you need to use is going to change depending on your goals, right? So like if you are doing something that needs to have a lot of like, middle-class white moms, then yeah, like Facebook is great. And I'm on Facebook. I am that person. I get it. Like that's where you go find us. But if you are looking for like a community that is not my community, you shouldn't probably be like looking on Facebook first, right? It's about like really doing like even just the smallest amount of like research into where you are and just asking, figure it out based on that. Go meet people where they are. In my experience, Twitter does not do a lot of localized organizing. If you just want to talk to people from around the country about like politics, yeah, that's great. But like not for local organizing, no.
Okay. I'm going to say what I think, which is that I think that like any social media platform, as we've all been told for a long time, that it definitely has its drawbacks. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, for the love of fuck, can we not use that? Anyways, that's my personal beef. But so like for me personally, I've been able to utilize Twitter to really, really help my on the ground activism. Like for example, working with COLA, like when we're fighting for our cost of living adjustment, we weren't able to put the pressure on the campus until we got the internet mad. And just like those kids who got suspended in the Georgia school for those pictures, like we put the pressure on. And so I think it really comes down to how you're using your Twitter profile or whatever social media. And that's where I go to, again, fuck Instagram. It's not. But that said, if you are able to to engage and interact with the people on that platform in a way that they find palatable, like I can't on Instagram, then that can be a useful thing. So I've mentioned the COLA movement. That's one example. So we gained national and then international support. We were able to work and connect with different universities across the world. And what is so fucked is we had actually gotten every single one of the UCs to sign on with us, and they were all about to go on strike, and then COVID hit and we all had to do other things. But so
Right.
I think right now, especially given some people are immunosuppressed, some people are otherly abled, there are so many different channels of activism. We need people sending emails. We need campaign blasts. I mean, here we are doing the show, creating alternative forms of media and consumption so that people can see it. This wouldn't be very valuable if we didn't have people going online. And so, like, yes, fundamentally, if you have the option to sit at home on Twitter or to go to a literal physical protest, I'm not ever going to be like, I'm actually not going to tell you what to do. I think you are capable of figuring out how you can be most effective. I'm not here to like activist police you. I'm very much an abolitionist, but I do think that there are so many ways that we can utilize both connecting online and in real life in ways that help support us when we're facing off against like mainstream media and the manufacturing of all these consents. And so then I come to this where I'm like, COLA. And then personally for me, I got to Iowa crowdsourcing my funding so I could go and knock on doors, and that's, so working, I think Josh Collins, I saw a comment here talking about Josh Collins. Like that's a fine example. You can't base your entire existence on just being online. Let me rephrase that. Everybody can't. I think that's where we get into like, we can't have everybody doing that. But I do think this is where we come back into what we were talking about earlier, which was diversity and recognizing a diversity of needs, a diversity of ways to do these things. And that's where it comes back into collaborating and engaging with your community so you can know. I see Brandon's about to cut me off. So you can know like what needs to be done and how to organize effectively with those things. So I'm not saying like just stay on Facebook, Instagram, fucking Twitter, whatever. I'm old. Cycle through names. But, also finding ways to be okay with being at home right now is really important. And I think there's a lot of meaningful shit you can be doing online at home that can still be effective. And so like for me, I've used a lot of, I use my Twitter very much to help with the stuff online. But now it's gotten to the point where I can advertise both local things and I can help a homie out across the coast, so I don't know. Exactly. It's a Twitter is another utility and a tool for the toolbox. It shouldn't be your only tool. You're gonna be, but it definitely should be in your toolbox if you can make that. So
you really got to
Yeah, we very strongly agree. Sorry.
You've really got to ask what you got to do a self-assessment, just like if you were starting almost like a business. Like, what are you specifically good at? And what can you do consistently and in a way that fits into your lifestyle? Like, maybe I can't write really fire articles more than a couple times a year and do my regular organizing activism, but I can fit like talking into a microphone for an hour into my lifestyle because there's like a hard time for it. I show up, and a lot of the time that me as a perfectionist, I'm going to spend editing. Once this video goes out, like it's over. And my time is cut in half. Whereas I know that if I'm going to write 3 paragraphs, I'm going to spend an hour fucking tediously editing that paragraph. So getting out and doing a hot take on video, especially because I'm also like a good public speaker and I can improv and talk for an hour. Everybody can't do that, right? Like some people would get on here and be just like, what's happening? My brain's melting.
I mean, charisma is a tool, and you definitely have it. And I don't know if it's one that can necessarily be taught, but you use it very well.
Not like this. Not like this. But no,
I don't think so. No.
But jokes aside, like,
okay, Tyler?
You've got to think about what your skill is.
Okay, I love you, Pumpkin.
Start using it like in a way that boosts the movement on an issue that you care about. And just start letting people know that you do that thing, and people will just start coming to you really quickly. Especially if you approach people and ask, "Hey, do you want to work on something together?" You'll be surprised.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I got convinced that Twitter is a better platform than I thought. But also because I suck at chasing clout on Twitter, so maybe I needed to learn a little bit about that. But
it's
been
marketing.
fun.
Becoming a
It is.
listener
Like, all of
reply
it is
guy.
just marketing. And
She'll
you have to
reply-
understand.
Yeah.
You go first.
I just want to, I get called a clout chaser sometimes on Twitter. I want to be abundantly fucking clear. I am always on that website to help interact with humans and to build and connect with community. And like, I don't really care. Here's my thing though. If you have like 300 fucking, if you follow 300 people or like fucking 500 people and then you've got a bunch of followers, then yeah, you're fucking shit. You're being a turd and you should be actively trying to show people that you're on your Twitter limit. So like one of the things I always do is when I'm on a Twitter, like if I'm like at capacity or whatever, and I'm trying to follow someone, like I'll go click to go follow them, take a screen grab, and then like make a comment and be like, hey, just want to let you know I can't follow back anybody right now. And I'll get there, and then like I have this folder on my phone, and I go back, and then I go and refollow them when I can. But you know, and that's like I try and create accountability. I try and make it so that like my followers know that in general, on average, if they need something, I will either find a way to connect them with something, or at least I'll help complain and wallow in misery with them. And I have a couple good Ben Shapiro memes, so there's that too.
See, I follow exactly 420 people, and actually I'm 5 over right now, and I'm going to have to do a culling, but I follow 420 people. That is the number of people I follow, ideally no more, no less. And my DMs are always open. I do read like the messages from people that I don't follow, like the message requests and stuff like that. I read them. On more than one occasion, somebody has reached out to me and asked me to signal boost like a campaign for them. And I've said yes. I will always say yes if you've got like a fundraising campaign, or if you've got something that's like benefiting the community that needs to be signal boosted. I will always retweet that. Like I will always give advice if I have it. But you know, I follow 420 people because that's funny.
Yeah, well, it's been fun, everyone. I'm gonna be heading out, so take care. Okay.
Okay,
Wow.
we love you.
Thank you for coming. It was great.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry,
Have a good
I
weekend.
bombarded into here.
No, this
Don't
is what
worry.
we wanted. This is it's
Like a bull in a fucking China shop. Like, what up?
Allow our producer / meme magician / Lau just does a lot. So yeah, whenever Lau can come on the show, do their thing, we love it.
I love
right.
that.
I love that. Oh, see, this is my kind of shit that I'm all about right here. That's what I'm about. I love that. And I love being we love that too. Yeah. I love being able to boop. I do. I love booping animals too. But I meant to say boost.
I love the boop too.
This just in, the term is officially now signal booping.
Signal boop.
Signal booping. Also, I have gotten so pale in this virus that my face, every time I laugh, just matches my fucking banner.
That's funny. Just blending in. Just blending in.
Just this is my camouflage, I guess.
Yeah, so Chicano is gonna probably be a big Twitter person because Chicano has the right brain to prosper in the Twitter world. But let's just talk about this. Are there too many clout chasers? What do we got?
We live in a capitalist society.
Yeah, we're all crabs in a bucket.
Yeah.
There's no good consumption under capitalism.
There's no good clout.
shirt. Damn.
Well, and I mean, I think to be any kind of successful at all for any of this, you have to recognize that what you're doing is branding and marketing, and you have to actually treat it like branding and marketing. And if you get to the point where like you understand it as branding and marketing, guess what? You're chasing clout. Hopefully you have good reasons, but like if you want to do anything, you have to chase clout. Yeah.
So, and that's where I'm like, I don't know if I fundamentally disagree with that. I think I agree with it, but I do think that the connotations that we have with clout aren't always properly outlined and operationalized in how we're defining them. So like kind of like when we were saying is social media good or bad for your marketing or whatever. And I'm like, well, that depends a lot on you, baby. you know, like, but I think so. Yeah, like I feel like I agree with you, like totally. I just to all the people who are watching this who may have like a super negative connotation associated with clout, I think to clarify what we're saying is like, fucking know your market, know your audience, read the room. For the love of God, read the room, and then,
Yeah, I don't. Go ahead.
You got it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really like get into the micro details of like there's always the thing on Twitter that's so fucking psychically damaging is there's always somebody with one outrageous fucking take. And that take becomes like the take of the day. And then we spend like the entire day discussing like, is charcuterie elitist? It's almost like a fucking Mad Lib generator is like
amazing. Yeah, the outrage machine is bad.
Yeah.
Just, the outrage machine is very bad. People who are exclusively engaging with politics on that kind of superficial bad faith level where they're just trying to like run around being a woke scold, like that is not helping anybody. Fucking quit it. Actually do things to help people. You know, I mean, yes, absolutely do anti-racist work, you know, educate people based on what you know, like do that work too, but like you don't have to be a dick about it. Nobody cares.
But okay.
Well, I feel like
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel like that's kind of like the biggest thing that I see that pisses me off about outrage culture and in general with our, like where I have reservations on cancel culture and this, all of this is that it really, really suffocates the room of any ability for people to be like, hey, I fucked up. I made a mistake. I was wrong. I'm clearly here learning. And then there's all LGBT clout. Just yelled that. But I also think so. It's when we're trying, like for me, I never in a million years thought that I would actually have access to this educational facility that now I'm just like, haha, bitches, I'm squatting. But you know, I never in a million years I thought I'd get here. And after all this fighting to get here, I want to share what I know. That said, I recognize that what I know is so infinitesimally small compared to the general and collective knowledge. And that's why I'm always out there trying to interact with new people and to teach as much as I'm learning. And so kind of going back to this is when we have outrage culture and when we have these, motherfucker, you just called me a colonialist? Flow girl, I see you. Anyways. Grand acknowledgement, but for clout. Oh my god.
I am screaming on the stolen clout from Brandon Buchanan, my son, who I love and adopted.
Yeah.
And it's okay because I adopted him and he's my son and I love him and I would die for him. My son, Brandon.
But anyway, we've got
anyways.
Yeah.
Moving right on.
This whole thing is really amazing because when we talk about like the clout chasing, everybody's like, first of all, 1K is not clout. Like it's actually not like if you have like followers and you have like
you don't think it when you're at 1K.
Right.
I feel like the clout switch gets flipped at like 10K.
Yeah.
We're talking about Twitter specifically.
That's where I struggle because I just hit 10.3, but I follow a lot more. I think I follow like 11.5 thousand people.
And you're friends with all 11,000, which you know.
No. I'm friends with 10,998 of them.
Okay.
There's a couple sassy broads on there that I just leave to fight with. But yeah, no. So I think that I feel like we're really starting to work away from this shaming and shame in itself in ways that are harmful and not as productive. I think people are recognizing that. That said, the fucking chick in New York with her dog, like if you're calling the police and you're trying to be a Karen, yes, you should get canceled. I want to see your face on the internet and I will dox you. Point blank, period. I know that that's
I think there's a difference between like public accountability and like shaming and like cancel culture, right? Because they're very similar things, but they're not identical. You know, so like community accountability can include when somebody puts somebody's life at risk for something, or like materially harms somebody. Like, yeah, absolutely, yeah, like talk about that. But if it's like somebody says something or expresses a belief you disagree with, like your options are basically, in my opinion, like the things you should do that are correct are either don't engage or engage productively. And I understand not everybody always has the spoons to do emotional labor. And if that's the case, you got to just disengage. Like, and I say this as a person, like, I lose my temper, I get bitchy, like, it happens, I get it. But, like, you have to understand that is not the productive side of it, you know? It's when you actually talk to another person like a human being and change their mind. And at the end of the day, like, no, I should never have to do, like, emotional labor teaching men how to be feminists, right? But I have to because somebody's got to do it. Like, it has to happen. I can be mad that I have to do it, or I can just do it.
No.
I'm so glad that you brought that up. I gotta be real with you guys. Speaking of fucking clout chasers, I do have okay. I do have somebody who follows me on Twitter and is the most bullshit, full of fucking shit leftist I've ever met. And I know them in real life. And I made like a one-off joke about it last night on my Twitter where I was like, it's really cute when it's funny when people follow you, but they're super shitty to you in real life. And then they just like won't retweet anything I've quote tweeted. They'll just like go to the one below it and just retweet the original. And if I did something, they'll just like rephrase it differently. And it's still funnier because nobody engages with them. But like, so there are people that will piggyback off you and try and do things where they're like trying to take your, I'm trying not to say take your ideas because I really believe in the collectivism of ideas and knowledge and power. But I do think there is something to say that there are people out there chasing clout who are literally going to do things because they see how it will benefit them. This person specifically decided to quit our non-paid positions and go and try and do some paid positions for a different campaign. And so there are people out there who are absolutely trying to monopolize on literally anything. That's going to happen. I think in almost, as long as we have a capitalist society where some people are rewarded for that, there's that. But there's this other aspect of like, we still have a lot of shit going wrong on the left. And you talked about like, sometimes I don't got the mental spoons to describe how sexist someone's being, right? So this specific person I'm talking about is super sexist, but I see a lot of misogyny on the left, and I see in ways that disappoints me, that bums me out in ways that I feel like sometimes I can't even articulate. And I've struggled with that a lot. Like from small things where I see myself getting interrupted or like not having time to talk or fully form thoughts, whatever, to like more big things where they just say stupid shit. Like got in a fight with somebody online the other day because they were saying that it wasn't weird that husbands have to sign off on women getting vasectomies, but not vice versa. Kind of things like that. And you're like, really? Tell me more about it.
Yeah. Well, and it's completely valid and appropriate to just say no to things. Like, exactly. And I think that's part of it is, you know, people feel like they can't disengage. And maybe they really can't disengage, but it's important to learn how to do. It's important to learn how to identify within yourself, like, oh, I'm too upset to have this conversation. I need to walk away from it. You know? Right. And I'm not expecting anybody to be perfect, right? Like, of course, everybody's going to get in their feelings sometimes, but like, that is the goal to strive for.
Right. And I think if you do have the spoons though, and so if you're not in a space where you're feeling those frustrations, like cultivating these spaces that we're talking about and community accountability, but also, you know, like it's okay to be wrong. Let me show you. And where people don't feel attacked, they feel like they can actually learn, like take that time. If you feel, you know, again, this comes back into knowing yourself and your strengths. But also like engaging with the idea that we all have the capacity to be wrong, to misspeak. And so I got a little buddy over here. So I'm going to let you two take over. I'll be right back.
So I think kind of what you're saying is it's really important to have these conversations when we can and to engage when we can, especially when we are speaking to our own privilege, right? So like I, a lot of the times, do not feel super safe and secure when I'm talking about like feminist issues or issues of bodily autonomy or issues of consent, because these are things that directly affect me and I'm going to lose it way faster when I'm talking about my own trauma. But what I can do is listen really carefully to like Black people. And when I see white people being racist, call them in, because I'm not talking about my own trauma. And that degree of separation and the fact that I am speaking to somebody whose culture I reflect gives me more of an ability to be effective and more of an ability to communicate effectively, you know, and it makes it less traumatizing, I think, in the long run for everybody, if we can hold each other and like help each other and have each other's backs in sort of that way.
That's wonderful.
And it's like, you know, like the difference between an ally and an accomplice, right? Like we have the same goals ultimately. Liberation is for everybody, and none of us is free until all of us are free.
Yes. Well, and I think that's why, like, one of my favorite chants is one of them is the people united will never be divided, and then no justice, no peace, fuck the police. But there's something to be said for being surrounded by your comrades and allies and people that you've worked really hard with to pull off this organizing all these things and to get this event going, and then to be able to like fucking march and chant. Like there's something very human to me about protesting and about having a moral economy, if you will, where we're like, no, we won't accept these things, and being able to have these people that we know are going to fight with us, like arms linked in the street, or if it's online, and it's having each other's back and being like, hey, I have your back so much that I'm here to help you learn when you're wrong, and to make it so that you feel like you can tell me when I'm wrong, and that we can all grow together, because this is about uplifting each other. This isn't like, there's none of this like pulling anybody up bullshit. We're all being shit on for the most part, unless you're part of the very upper middle class. Chances are you're getting the shit end of the stick too. And so that's where it comes back down to, like, we are really, really in this together. Not to be a cliche like Earth Day ad, but like we are in this together. And we got climate change, we got social issues, we have all of these things that we have to fight with. And like you were saying earlier, the number one way to break down individualistic differences, things like racism, bigotry, and all types of things, is to work on a common problem and to find a solution together. And so I am a blatant fucking optimist, probably to my own flaws, but I do think, like, in the words of my man Zach De La Roca, what better place than here? What better time than now? Like, I just gave myself my own chills. Like, it's time to go, and people are really stepping up, and that's my favorite thing. I don't care how much it doesn't get covered, how much it's not on mainstream media, because I don't fucking watch mainstream media anymore. Brandon's my only source of news nowadays. But I think what you said was so important, because it's so much about having each other's backs and like giving people the okay to be wrong, and still be able to come back and have somebody that loves them, and I don't mean it lightly when I say I love everyone, because for the most part I do. I love everyone, and I think that it's so imperative that we engage with these things with love and having all of that. And then having said all that, after studying all this shit for fucking years, living in a tent next to a meth lab and all kinds of other fun things, being a widow, single mom, all this stuff, like, at the end of the day, I just forgot my sentence in the middle of it. I don't know what I was. Oh, I do remember. There it is. I got it. Is that no matter how much effort I've spent in trying to learn both from people, from past experiences, and from others' experiences and all these things, I still lay awake at night and I'm like, fuck, I probably said something wrong. Somebody's going to watch that and be like, Alyssa's the worst. Like, I have such crippling social anxiety. And so, and I kind of wanted to just bring that up because it's okay. Like, we are going to make mistakes. And so that's kind of why I try and engage with that way, is so that we can all have this really loving collaborative space. Anyways, I love you guys.
All right, so we've been.
And we have to forgive ourselves first.
That's right. We've been doing an hour and a half. Do we have any other notes that we want to share and just talking about building internet? I mean, obviously we could do this for 3 hours. We could just do this forever. But okay, we will do. Rachel and Alyssa, both of you.
What are we doing? Sorry, my computer decided I needed Siri for some reason, and like 3 different times it just popped up, and I was like, thanks, I needed this.
Rachel, we're giving you the floor.
What am I talking about, though? Like,
any final notes?
Oh, any final thoughts? You know, I say all of this. There are always going to be bullies. It is still important to stand up to bullies.
Yeah.
Try not to be a bully in the process, but don't just let them do it. You know, tell them no. Be direct. Have boundaries. Like, you know, none of this stuff is meant to say that you should like actively injure yourself with this. You know, like we have to have our shit together. We can't do it if we're traumatized. We have to take care of ourselves. That means breaks. That means sleep. That means drinking enough water. That means saying no to things when you have to say no. You know, and don't forget that side of it either. You know, don't forget that you are a person and you have needs and limits and skills. And no matter what, no matter who, no matter which identities you represent, like there is something you can be doing to contribute. And whatever it is, figure it out and do it.
Alyssa, what's on your mind? Do you have any final thoughts?
I'm going to go ahead and lean into the Bernie bro right now. And say that if you're having, I know Brandon's cringing so hard, his eyes rolled back forward. No.
I'm intrigued.
But you know, so one of the most important parts of that campaign for me was the I will fight for someone I don't know and the not me us. Like those are, I love those. I love those, and I saw it embodied. I won't ever be able to describe how transformative that campaign was for me, because it really helped me, A, get a platform, like we've talked about a little bit on here, but B, it really taught me that if you can't find your space, there is one for you. And I think that's what's so cool about, to like wrap all this up, what's so cool about No Comrades Under 1K is that it's a really fucking easy thing to do. It is so easy to follow people and to be like, hey, if you don't have a community, if you don't feel like you have your people or your person yet, no problem. Like, and I mean this, I'm your person. Is there anybody out there who's feeling like they don't know where their community is, or they don't know how to get involved, or like it's overwhelming, or they have social anxiety, things like that? Like, A, I'm your girl, hit me up on Twitter. We'll hang out and chat. But B, like, remember that you're an important person and that you're valuable, like you were just saying, Rachel, and that everybody deserves a chance to learn and deserves a chance to have that access of being able to be like, no, I can learn about these things and do these things and engage with these things. So I also want people to feel like, so for anybody who disagrees with the things I say, I do want them to know that I try and really incorporate and build a safe space on my Twitter timeline, because it's the only platform. But so just to wrap all of this up, we have this giant shift in our culture right now, like Brandon was saying, when you open, where people are really, really starting to think about their material and their personal positions and like how hard it is, and people are engaging with that. And so you know, if you're feeling peppy, hit me up, but if you're feeling sad, hit me up, and just know that like we really fucking care. Like we wouldn't be on here. I think I made Brandon talk with me for like 3 hours the other night. But we care, and part of why we do this is so y'all have some shit to watch and to do and to engage with. Dynamic shift. There and
hopefully, like, there's some experience that's also being shared. Like, we're learning shit.
Yeah.
And we're laughing. We're making all kinds of bad jokes.
We're having good times. We're having bad times. We're becoming closer as friends.
It was the best of times, and it was the worst of times.
And we are also asking for money. Hello.
Yes.
Hello, Patreon. People who are currently our patrons, thank you. We love you. You're fabulous. You're beautiful. You're my best friend. People who are not yet our patrons, please consider becoming a patron. We use the money to pay for things like StreamYard, which is how we stream on all these places at the same time and have cool, like, tickers down below and stuff like that. It's really helpful. If you would like to give money on Patreon sometimes so that we can continue to have a halfway decent program and so that I can get a desk that doesn't hurt my body to sit at, please go to patreon.com/notsafe and become a patron. Our lowest tier is like $1 and you'll get all kinds of cool stuff and we will love you and you'll become my best friend.
Also, maybe if you're really nice and donate a lot, she might adopt you as a child.
Yeah,
That's a very
I'll show somebody my butt or something. And I've done that before.
I have really creepy long toes if anybody's into that.
Ooh, mine are webbed.
Ooh, we fancy.
Ooh. Anyway, Alyssa, do you want to plug? Do you have things to plug?
Butts? I just read the...
Hell yeah. So we're
didn't know
butts.
that.
We're
Plug your
asking
butt.
for money. We are not hucksters, but we are buskers, and we do hope to receive some tips one of these days.
I do
Help out where you can. If that's not monetarily, go out into your community and do some shit.
Yeah. So that's it, y'all. Thank you for watching. We'll be back like Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. We'll be back Monday, kicking it, doing it. We're also going to have a new episode of the podcast with Justin Farmer, and it's going to be up in like an hour.
Woo!
Go to the website, subscribe, and we're going to talk about like local activism and fighting with the Yale University. Justin's fighting to be the Yale state representative, and that is a very tall order. Got some clashes with the establishment. It's a very good thing. We also talk about marine biology and turning your skills into things that can support yourself in your local community. So more fun to come.
Last thing.
Yeah.
Please, please, please go to payusmoreucsc.com and you can go learn about all the cool shit I've been doing with all my badass comrades at UCSC and the historic Wildcat struggle. Damn it, I meant to say strike. Strike and struggle for the cost of living adjustment for our cops off campus and to help destabilize and defund the police. So there's that. And then I don't have a podcast. I have nothing to do with this, but it is the best other podcast other than the Not Safe for Work one, which is California. It's linked on my profile. I'll retweet it again, but it's basically the stories of a lot of students who are have different or are non-traditional students and why they got engaged with COLA and how they ended up using COLA and protesting and striking as a means of like self-care and mental health. So my final thing is if anybody wants to work on the Google Drive with me for activism or you want access to it, hit me up. Or if you want to work on my Cool Comrades low-cost cookbook and you have some cool recipes to collaborate with, hit me up.
That's right. So thank you for watching. Now you have some extra shit to do. So the fun doesn't stop when you're like done with this. And you can also visit us on the Podbean and look at old episodes and all that other bullshit. It's all good. So thanks for watching. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.